34-year-old Indian woman and her 56-year-old father were shot dead at a departmental store in Virginia in the US where they had been working. India has imposed anti-dumping duties on 5 products imported from China, including vacuum flasks and aluminium foil, to shield domestic manufacturers from the impact of low-cost imports. 3 major wildfires that broke out in the US and North Carolina County have exploded to burn more than 3,000 acres, combined as South Carolina's governor declares an emergency. And well, our big focus, US and Ukrainian officials resume ceasefire negotiations in Saudi Arabia as a top US envoy voiced optimism for a breakthrough while repeating multiple Kremlin talking points. Now, these talks mark the latest test of Washington's approach to Kyiv. Ukraine has agreed to a US-led temporary truce, but in interviews over the weekend, US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff called Ukraine a false country and praised Russian President Vladimir Putin and dismissed concerns that Moscow might be emboldened by a deal in Ukraine and invade other European nations. Washington wants a broad truce by Easter, as per reports, though experts believe that Putin is trying to prolong the talks. In fact, the Russian delegation in Saudi Arabia includes technical people who can ensure that the talks are not rushed. This is what a Russia-based analyst has pointed out as well. But for further clarity, joining us from Washington, D.C., Daniel Block. Daniel, as always, thank you so much for making time for us. At this point, can a ceasefire agreement truly hold, given the deep mistrust between Russia and Ukraine and the ongoing escalation in military action? Are you optimistic about the outcomes from these talks in Saudi Arabia?
I am not. And to understand why, really, you don't even need to necessarily look at the Ukrainian side. You need to look at what the Russians are demanding, which are an end to outside support for Ukraine, limits on the size of the Ukrainian military, a promise that Ukraine won't join NATO. And I believe there's also been talk about giving the Russian Orthodox Church special rights within Ukrainian politics.
Right.
And you add that all together, and what you get, in effect, is Russia is demanding an end to Ukrainian sovereignty in various ways, meddling in its domestic politics, control over its foreign policy, and a general weakening such that even if they stop fighting right now, Russia would be able to keep rebuilding its military and then invade a weakened Ukraine later on. So this is obviously unacceptable to the Ukrainians, and I think for very understandable reasons.
Absolutely.
And so I don't expect it to succeed. I expect the fighting will continue. Even if we have a very temporary truce, I think the fighting will resume in the future.
Daniel, would you then say that the US is risking being overly optimistic about Moscow's willingness to negotiate, or is there legitimate hope for peace talks to actually succeed for some sort of truce at least?
I think that Washington is being overly optimistic. It's the first thing you said to a T. And I'm slightly, I would say, surprised, but I suppose with Trump, many things can go. But the willingness they have to buy into what Moscow is saying really is surprising, in that we've been here before. There have been peace talks between Ukraine and Russia in the past. Before the 2022 invasion began, there were conversations that went on to try and strike ceasefire deals in the eastern part of Ukraine, where Russian proxy forces were fighting. And what we saw then was it was an opportunity for Russia to pause, help its proxies rearm, and then keep fighting. And so I see no reason, given what Russia is demanding now, given what they've done in the past, that that's not their template again. And you know, I think that they're being, as you said, overly optimistic.
Right. And then is the risk of Putin being emboldened by a ceasefire agreement too high, or are we being overly alarmist to fear Russia's further territorial ambitions?
It's a good question. And I don't think anyone really knows the answer for sure. You know, if this works, will Russia attack, say, one of the states in the Baltics? Will he attack Poland? But I think we don't want to find out. We have seen Russia be quite aggressive to other countries in the past, even if it's not lobbing missiles at them. You know, it will interfere in the elections of other states. I think I remember a story about them kidnapping a police officer from Estonia. So this is a president who we know has dreams of resurrecting the Soviet Union. He's basically said as much, or at least dreams of resurrecting the Russian Empire from the 19th century. So I don't think you necessarily want to find out if he'll be emboldened or not and go further. But, I suppose we may find out.
Well, Daniel, as always, thanks so much for making time for us and joining us with your views. We will, of course, revert you for regular updates as these peace talks proceed. But there was an attack on Kyiv ahead of ceasefire negotiations in Saudi Arabia. In fact, 3 people, including a 5-year-old child, were killed, and 10 others were injured in Russia's latest drone strike. Russia launched 147 drones across Ukraine, according to the Ukrainian Air Force, and Ukrainian air defenses shot down 97 and 25 others didn't reach targets due to Ukrainian countermeasures, is what they've said. With that, let's turn our attention now to Canada, where the new Prime Minister Mark Carney has moved to dissolve Parliament and trigger a snap election on the 28th of April. The widely anticipated decision kicks off an election race less than 2 weeks after Mr. Carney took up his post, succeeding Justin Trudeau at a time of soaring tensions with the United States. Just listen in to what Mark Carney had to say.
There is so much more to do to secure Canada, to invest in Canada, to build Canada, to unite Canada. That's why I'm asking for a strong, positive mandate from my fellow Canadians. I've just requested that the Governor-General dissolve Parliament and call an election for April 28th. And she has agreed. I'm asking Canadians for a strong, positive mandate to deal with President Trump and to build a new Canadian economy that works for everyone. Because I know we need change. Big change. Positive change. You see, my generation was fortunate. For us, there were more opportunities and life was more affordable. You had to work hard, but you could get ahead. That was the bargain. But for the generations that have followed, they're working just as hard or even harder than we did. But they're struggling to pay the rent, to put groceries on the table, and to save for their kids' education.
My colleague Maha Siddiqui joins us live from Vancouver at the moment with a quick update. Maha, as always, thanks so much for making time for us. Many are arguing, you've been reporting as well, that Mark Carney is hoping that an early vote will benefit his Liberal Party, which actually seems to be riding a wave of momentum.
That's absolutely correct. And if you look at some of the opinion polls, Parmeshwar, at the moment, and one that was conducted by Ipsos and Global News here, it shows that the Liberal Party is now 6 points ahead of the Conservatives. This is a remarkable comeback for a party that was for almost over 6 months lagging behind the Conservatives, and it was almost certain that they would have lost the elections. But now they are fighting fit, it appears. And also, if you look at the same opinion poll, it appears that Mark Carney has a higher approval rating than Pierre Poilievre. This is just one of the opinion polls, but even other opinion polls are giving them a neck-and-neck chance with the Conservatives. So clearly, this is a moment that Mark Carney wanted to capitalize on. And also, he is pretty much untested in the political arena. He's just been a prime minister for 10 days right now. And in the 10 days, he's made all the right moves that he believes will assure the public, assure the Canadians that he is the person who can deliver, especially when there are threats of economic subversion as well as annexation threats coming from the US, from US President Donald Trump. He is a banker. He has been the governor of Bank of Canada, of Bank of England. And at the moment when there is a tariff threat, trade war with the US, many see him as the man of the moment or for the moment. And this is what Mark Carney believes he can capitalize on. That is why they have asked for the dissolving of Parliament, which has been done now by the Governor General, and elections have been announced for 28th April. The campaign is pretty much underway now. Mark Carney has also proposed a middle-class tax cut, which means that the lowest bracket of income tax will be cut by 1%, which he says will make an $825 extra in the pockets of the Canadian families. So yes, the Liberal Party believes that this is the moment that they can actually turn things around for themselves and perhaps win the elections. That's why they have called for these snap polls.
As always, Maha, thanks so much for joining us with the lowdown. Many argue that the upcoming vote's central ballot question will be which party leader is best equipped to respond to Donald Trump and manage Canada-US ties. We'll, of course, track the latest on that front. But for now, let's turn our attention to the other big story we're tracking on NDTV. More than 50,000 Palestinians have now been killed in the war between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. This is what the territory's health ministry has confirmed, as new Israeli airstrikes killed at least 26 Palestinians overnight, including a Hamas political leader and several women and children. The true toll could be much higher, authorities have warned, with many thousands believed to still be under the rubble. My colleague Mohammed Ghazali has been tracking the finer developments for us. He joins us live at the moment. Ghazali, what's the latest?
Yeah, as you rightly pointed out, the health ministry in Gaza has said that the death toll has now surpassed 50,000 as the figure, but there are many more people who are still said to be trapped under the rubble there. And many agencies, many health data and other agencies have pointed out that it will actually take more than years to clear the entire rubble, and it will take months to clear it. Meanwhile, all these peace plans, which Egypt and other Arab countries were claiming to have implemented it in Gaza, has not moved ahead. There is no forward plan right now because the ceasefire has not been implemented. The hostages are still in captivity of Hamas. Israel continues to attack, carry out the aerial strikes inside the Gaza Strip. Similar strikes operations are happening in West Bank as well. So it doesn't look like that how from this point, both the Arab countries, the mediators, the Hamas and Israel will move forward, because had it been so, the second phase of ceasefire could have been implemented. But US, Egypt and Qatar are pressurizing both the parties to sit for negotiation, to move beyond and accept the second part of the ceasefire, asking Israel to completely withdraw from the Gaza Strip. But Israel has declined to refuse to do so. Meanwhile, Hamas claims that until Israel withdraws from the Gaza Strip, hostages will not be released. So we'll have to see that how from here onwards, when it looks like a dead block, that nobody is inching or moving behind on their claims and counterclaims. We'll have to see that how US manages to put both sides on table or other mediators. But meanwhile, a very sad story coming out that the casualties are increasing every day, every hour for the last 5-6 days since Israel has announced that it will not accept the ceasefire, or the ceasefire has collapsed. Attacks have continued every hour in Gaza Strip, bringing out all those pictures of kids and women getting killed, most of them being kids and women who have been killed in these attacks.
Ghazali, as always, thank you so much for joining us with that crucial update. Well, to the US now, where a 24-year-old Indian woman and her 56-year-old father were shot dead at a departmental store in Virginia where they had been working. In fact, the shooting took place on Thursday, shortly after the store in Accomack County opened. Police have arrested one person for the double murder. The person arrested is a man called George Frazier Devon Wharton, who's a 44-year-old. He has been arrested for the double murder. According to reports, the accused had reached the store early on Thursday morning and asked to buy liquor. He asked why the store was shut at night. He then happened to open fire at the father-daughter duo, and while Pradeep Patel died on the spot, his daughter Urmi succumbed to her injuries at the hospital. An Indian man and his daughter were killed in a double murder, and the police have arrested one person for this double murder. And let's turn our attention now to the wildfires that are burning in the US. More than 25 million people across 10 states in the United States are under red flag warnings for the threat of wildfires. Much of the fire threat stretches across the central US, but parts of the southeast are also under an elevated risk. 3 major wildfires that broke out in one North Carolina county, still recovering from Hurricane Helene, by the way, have exploded to burn more than 3,000 acres. Combined, as South Carolina's governor declares an emergency in response to a growing wildfire in the Blue Ridge Mountains. Switching tracks, India has imposed anti-dumping duties on 5 products imported from China. This includes vacuum flasks and foil to shield domestic manufacturers from the impact of low-cost imports. Now, these measures implemented by the Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs aim to curb unfair trade practices and ensure a level playing field for Indian industries. What are the affected products? Well, they include soft ferrite cores that are used in electric vehicles, chargers and telecom devices. Also, a key chemical in water treatment has now been a part of the anti-dumping duties. In fact, resin as well, paste resin, which is used in manufacturing plastic-based products, has also been affected. This decision comes after investigations revealed that certain Chinese products were being exported to India at prices below normal market prices, negatively affecting local producers. So, the imposition of these duties is expected to provide relief to Indian manufacturers that have been struggling with cheap imports, undercutting their market prices. Well, news and updates continue in a moment, right after this very short break. Do stay tuned.
In today's interconnected world, India's voice is more crucial than ever. When India speaks, the world listens. At NDTV World, we are that voice, bringing you intelligent and insightful news from India and beyond. From geopolitics and diplomacy to economic shifts, migrations, tech disruptions, and the stories of our diaspora. We cover the news that shapes our global future. NDTV World, your new home for global news is here.
From interesting tech startups to industry-leading companies, politics, sports, culture, curry, cricket. Oh, there's so much to talk about. Like me, if you too thrive on interesting conversations, this is a show you cannot miss. Watch this space to know more about all matters and all people that make Britain what it is today. Out of Britain, with me, Radhika Iyer.
In terms of the strategic relationship and the intelligence arrangements between India and the United States, to what extent is it premised on perhaps an expansionist or an expanding China and the Asia-Pacific region?
You know, the ties between our two countries, the United States and India, go very, very far back. And so what we're continuing to see is a strengthening of that partnership and recognizing that the mutual interests of both of our countries are centered around peace, prosperity, freedom, and security. So now as we see a new administration coming in with President Trump's leadership in the United States, of course, Prime Minister Modi's long-standing leadership here in India, we have two leaders of our two great countries who are very good friends and who are very focused on how we can strengthen those shared objectives and those shared interests.
The other big international talking point is obviously the situation between Russia and Ukraine, and we're all optimistic, and I've covered the war 3 times. Be that as it may, if President Putin doesn't come on the table with the peace agreement which has been proposed by the United States, can Washington indefinitely keep arming Ukraine and, in a sense, allowing them to continue their fight?
President Trump is seeing this ongoing conflict with very clear eyes. And he has made his position and his priority very clear, which is to bring about an end to this war. So he is focused on peace. The negotiations have just begun. He's looking forward to success in those negotiations, not for himself, but for the cause of peace and to stop the killing of innocent and taking of innocent lives there. So he has the best negotiators working with both the Ukrainians and with Russia and with Putin. And we look forward to seeing the continued progress that we've already seen over a very short period of time. I think it's important to point out that under the previous administration, during which this war began, there was no effort at all towards peace.
One of your primary concerns and one of your primary responsibilities is to deal with the threat of terror. And at the moment, we see a great deal of that out of Yemen. We see attacks on shipping taking place, and we see the United States being very much on the offensive. Is that a prelude for something larger, perhaps even a ground offensive going forward?
I mean, you look at President Trump's leadership going back through his first term as president, he has been and remains very committed to combating and defeating the threat of Islamist terrorism that not only affects the United States, the American people, our own safety and security, but it is affecting so many people in different parts of the world. We can see different terrorist groups, the Houthis in Yemen being one of them, that President Trump has redesignated after President Biden took them off of the terrorist list, redesignated them appropriately as a terrorist organization, and taking action where the previous administration failed to.
Right.
The Houthis have been disrupting maritime trade and passage for a very long time, and no serious effort has been taken to stop that disruption. Our country and other countries should not be in a position to have to make a decision to reroute commerce going through that area simply because of the Houthi threat that exists. So President Trump has taken decisive action for our own safety, security, and prosperity, and I know we'll look to other...
Let's get you the latest from South Korea now, where the Constitutional Court has ruled to strike down the impeachment of Prime Minister Han Duck-soo and restore his powers, marking the latest twist in the country's political turmoil after his impeachment as acting president more than 2 months ago. Han took over as acting leader from President Yoon Suk Yeol, who was himself impeached over his short-lived declaration of martial law just last year. By the way, in other news, Usha Vance, U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance's wife, will travel to Greenland this week as U.S. President Donald Trump clings to the idea of a U.S. annexation of the strategic semi-autonomous Danish territory. The delegation will return to the U.S. on the 29th of March. The White House National Security Advisor Mike Waltz and the Energy Secretary Chris Wright will also travel to Greenland, visiting a U.S. military base in Greenland. You must note that Trump has made U.S. annexation of Greenland a major talking point since taking office for a second time, and has said that it will become part of the US one way or the other. And switching tracks, Pope Francis has appeared at his window of a hospital in Rome and offered a blessing for the first time since being admitted on the 14th of February. The 88-year-old pontiff was discharged minutes later, and doctors say he will need at least 2 months of rest at the Vatican. But during the past 5 weeks, he presented 2 very critical episodes where his life was in danger. One of the doctors treating the Pope has confirmed, but as you can see, the Pope was offering blessings for the first time since the 14th of February. And finally, Ishan Kishan left everyone stunned with his sensational batting display as the ignored Indian cricket team batter slammed a 45-ball century for Sunrisers Hyderabad during the IPL match against Rajasthan Royals. It was a special knock from the wicketkeeper batter as he smashed 11 fours and 6 sixes to score an unbeaten 106 of 47 deliveries. Here are the highlights.
From the shadows of setbacks to the spotlight of redemption, Ishan Kishan is back, and how? The explosive wicketkeeper batsman silenced his doubters by a stunning century on his debut for Sunrisers Hyderabad in the IPL.
Oh, carved away, this time over point. Back-to-back sixes for Ishan Kishan.
It's been a roller coaster for Ishan Kishan. Dropped from India's central contract last year and Mumbai Indians letting him go, the 26-year-old found a new home with SRH. And in his first outing, he delivered a masterclass. A 45-ball 100, laced with 11 fours and 6 sixes.
Brings out the switch hit and finds the gap.
His aggressive stroke play dismantled a top-tier bowling attack, guiding Sunrisers to a commanding 44-run win.
I just feel good, you know, it was coming and I was hoping for it in previous year, but yeah, good to get it in this season. Hopefully the team is doing well, the environment is very different, just loving everything overall, so let's just try and get a few more innings like this for the team.
For SRH fans, it's a dream start to the season. And for Ishan Kishan, it's a redemption arc worthy of the big screen. The question now, can he keep his momentum going? Osama Shab, NDTV.
And absolutely no doubt that time, a full swing of the bat.
Thank you for investing your time and watching this edition of The World 24/7. As always, we'll keep tracking the latest for you. Do stay tuned.
In today's interconnected world, India's voice is more crucial than ever. When India speaks, the world listens. At NDTV World, we are that voice, bringing you intelligent and insightful news from India and beyond. From geopolitics and diplomacy to economic shifts, migrations, tech disruptions, and the stories of our diaspora. We cover the news that shapes our global future. NDTV World, your new home for global news, is here.
From interesting tech startups to industry-leading companies, politics, sports, culture, curry, cricket. Oh, there's so much to talk about. Like me, if you too thrive on interesting conversations, this is a show you cannot miss. Watch this space to know more about all matters and all people that make Britain what it is today. Out of Britain, with me, Radhika Iyer.
One of your primary concerns and one of your primary responsibilities is to deal with the threat of terror. And at the moment, we see a great deal of that out of Yemen. We see attacks on shipping taking place, and we see the United States being very much on the offensive. Is that a prelude for something larger, perhaps even a ground offensive going forward?
When you look at President Trump's leadership going back through his first term as president, he has been and remains very committed to combating and defeating the threat of Islamist terrorism that not only affects the United States, the American people, our own safety and security, but it is affecting so many people in different parts of the world. We can see different terrorist groups, the Houthis in Yemen being one of them, that President Trump has redesignated after President Biden took them off of the terrorist list, redesignated them appropriately as a terrorist organization, and taking action where the previous administration failed to.
Right.
The Houthis have been disrupting maritime trade and passage for a very long time, and no serious effort has been taken to stop that disruption. Our country and other countries should not be in a position to have to make a decision to reroute commerce going through that area simply because of the Houthi threat that exists. So President Trump has taken decisive action for our own safety, security, and prosperity. And I know we'll look to other affected countries, as there are many who are impacted by this, to similarly take action.
From interesting tech startups to industry-leading companies, politics, sports, culture, curry, cricket. Oh, there's so much to talk about. Like me, if you too thrive on interesting conversations, this is a show you cannot miss. Watch this space to know more about all matters and all people that make Britain what it is today. Out of Britain, with me, Radhika Iyer.
This is NDTV, and you're watching NDTV 24/7.
A very good morning. You're watching NDTV 24/7. This is the Breakfast Show. I'm Divya Wada. We have a whole lot lined up for you, including Kunal Kamra's jokes on Eknath Shinde have sparked a row, and the Sena workers vandalized the venue where that performance of Kunal Kamra was held at that particular hotel. We'll get you all the details. First, let's get you the headlines. Shiv Sena workers ransacked the site of comedian Kunal Kamra's performance in Mumbai after his jibe on Maharashtra's Deputy Chief Minister. The Mumbai police have lodged an FIR based on the complaint made by the Sena workers. Fierce encounter in Kathua. There are 4 to 5 terrorists that have been holed up in a forest area. The terror bid on the other side in Poonch has been foiled. Arms and explosives have been recovered. And in the Judge Cash Rao, the Supreme Court panel to begin its probe today, they will be questioning the firefighters, the police, as well as the Delhi fire chief. The Delhi fire chief, who has been giving contradictory statements, will also be questioned. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney has called for snap elections to take place on the 28th of April. And it was Ishan Kishan who helped Sunrisers Hyderabad beat Rajasthan Royals. This is the century of 45 balls of Ishan Kishan that really helped that win.
By 44.
Let's get you breaking news coming in at the moment, and this is in regard to Mumbai police that have gone ahead and registered two cases. Two cases have been filed. These are defamation cases that have been filed, and FIR has been filed for vandalism as well. So Shiv Sena workers who ransacked the site of the show where stand-up comedian Kunal Kamra had mocked Maharashtra's Deputy Chief Minister Eknath Shinde, the party members, they gathered at the Khar police station to file a complaint against him. Mr. Kamra's remarks drew strong backlash from the Shiv Sena, which has demanded his arrest. The comedian has sparked massive controversy over the weekend, referring to the Deputy Chief Minister as a traitor during a performance at a hotel in Khar. He had also used a modified version of a Hindi song from Dil To Pagal Hai. Meanwhile, Shiv Sena UBT leader Aditya Thackeray in a social media post has questioned the law and order situation in the state.
कुणाल कामरा एक व्यक्ति ने हम सबके नेता महाराष्ट्र के उप मुख्यमंत्री माननीय एकनाथराव शिंदे जी के खिलाफ नीचे के स्तर पर जाके जो टिप्पणी की है उसके खिलाफ हम सब ने आज MIDC पुलिस स्टेशन में आए और इसके खिलाफ FIR दर्ज की है और पुलिस से मांग की है कि इसके ऊपर जल्द से जल्द कार्यवाही करे और मैं आपके माध्यम से उसको मैसेज देना चाहता हूं कि आने वाले 2 दिन में हमारे
And let's go across to my colleague Anuj, who's joining us. Anuj, get us the latest with an FIR. Two different FIRs have been filed. They're asking for the arrest of the comedian for making those, joking remarks regarding the Deputy Chief Minister of Maharashtra. Saying that it is actually, calling him. As far as Eknath Shinde is concerned, the remarks that were made against Eknath Shinde has got Kunal Kamra into a lot of trouble.
Well, yes, this show, which is in question at the moment, was recorded a few days earlier, although the clip started, getting spread, getting viral on social media only last night when it was released. And that is when we saw a huge number of people gather outside the Continental Hotel in Khar and kind of ransack the place, vandalize the place. And they even sent a team to the Khar police station to lodge an official complaint and an FIR in the same matter. However, the two FIRs that have been, that you mentioned a while back are counter FIRs. While on one hand, we have, Yuva Shiv Sena leaders who have filed complaint or FIR against Kunal Kamra for the show, the content of the show. Yesterday, at the same time, we have, people from that particular building who have filed FIR against the 20-odd people who were present when the vandalizing took place. That also includes Yuva Sena leader, Rahul Kanal. Now, what is interesting is that there is a lot of political undercurrent in this entire matter as well, because in the official complaint that has been lodged, we've seen that the complaint has been lodged not just against Kunal Kamra, but also against Rahul Gandhi and Sanjay Raut, because we've seen the statements coming from Shiv Sena leaders. They are of the belief that it is a conspiracy to defame Deputy Chief Minister Eknath Shinde, and Shiv Sena UBT, is hand in glove with Kunal Kamra for this quote-unquote paid campaign is what they've stated. However, the Shiv Sena UBT members, including Sanjay Raut and Aditya Thackeray, have come down heavily against the action that took place yesterday. And as you rightly said, they've questioned the law and order situation in
Right, like Anush was saying, calling it a conspiracy to malign Eknath Shinde, the Shiv Sena has lodged that complaint. A police complaint has been filed against Kunal Kamra, and there is, the complaints are also against Sanjay Raut, Aditya Thackeray, and Congress leader Rahul Gandhi. So the performance of the comedian has led to a lot of controversy regarding this, conversation, the jokes that he made on the deputy chief minister, calling him a traitor, using a modified version of a Hindi song from the film Dil To Pagal Hai. And now FIRs have been launched. There are 2 FIRs that have been launched in this particular complaint that has been filed by the Shiv Sena leaders. Now, Anuj, back with us. Anush, take us through, well, it is Shiv Sena that has described Kamra as a contract comedian. Allegations are being made that Uddhav Thackeray Sena has been hiring people like Kunal Kamra to target Eknath Shinde. So there are allegations, and this was, during a recent show when he extensively discussed contemporary politics. Kamra took a jibe at Shinde for splitting the party and aligning with the BJP and labelled him as a traitor. A clip from the show shared by Kamra himself showed him singing a spoof song of Dil To Pagal Hai, referring to him a leader from Thane. Now, Kamra did not explicitly name Shinde in the clip, but it is, of course, the references that have been made have not gone down too well with the Shiv Sena leaders who've gone ahead and filed 2 FIRs at the Khar police station against the comedian. And this is, of course, making complaints against Aditya Thackeray as well as UBT leader Sanjay Raut and Congress leader Rahul Gandhi. In other news, a major gun battle erupted in Kathua in Jammu and Kashmir on Sunday. A fierce encounter followed after security forces intercepted a fresh group of infiltrators. A 7-year-old girl was injured in the crossfire. Now, doctors have said that she's out of danger and stable, but 4 to 5 heavy armed terrorists are believed to be holed up in the forest area of Kathua. The locals had alerted the police after spotting heavily armed terrorists, and the quick reaction teams of CRPF and the police were the first to reach the spot, and further reinforcements were sent in. We have my colleague Nazir joining us to get us the latest. Nazir, how many hours has it been since the operations have been underway with these terrorists holed up inside? What's the latest that you're picking up?
Well, it has been more than now around 15 hours, this operation when it was started. But so far there's no inkling if any militant has been neutralized. But a massive operation is underway. Large number of reinforcement has been rushed to the area. It started yesterday at 5, when locals alerted the police that they have spotted at least 5 heavily armed militants. In Sanyal area, a couple had gone there to their fields. As you can see in this visual, this forest feature. So they are hiding there. So the security forces have cordoned the whole area. Clearly, it is not easy because these militants who have been pushed from Pakistan, we have seen it, most of those who are entering Jammu are well trained in jungle warfare. So operation appears to be a bit prolonged. It may take more time. It's not just where Army, CRPF, and the police have launched the joint operation, but it has to be a well-calibrated operation to neutralize these hardened militants without any casualties on the security forces. A 7-year-old girl has received minor injuries.